Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our talk series, How I Got into Top Universities in US. And today is our second series, and I would like to welcome all the three speakers that we have here. So first we have Isha here, and she's joining CMU. We have Aryan Valerie, is joining Cornell, and we have Harsh, he's joining John Hopkins. I'll pass it on to these folks for their introduction. Before that, I will just quickly brief you guys how this entire webinar is going to be structured. So largely the first 40 minutes is going to be a Q&A session between me as a moderator and the three panelists and the speakers that we have here. So we are going to take about 7 to 8 questions that we have pre-decided. And post that, we will open the stage for Q&A sessions. We would request if everybody can keep their video and their audio off during the first 40 minutes. And even later, if you guys can, even in between, if you have any doubts, you please keep putting it on the chat itself. We will try and see if we can answer a few of them in between. If not, we will take all the questions and queries towards the end. I guess with that, let's just start. I think let's start with Isha. Isha, can you please start with your introduction?
Hi, my name is Isha Gupta, and I'll be going to CMU. So I went to HeadStart Education Academy for all of my school years, and I did ICSE till the 10th and AS and A levels till the 12th. And I did physics, chem, math, economics, and English. I applied to 14 colleges. I applied to 3 Ivy Leagues. I applied to Duke, Georgetown, Brandeis, Claremont McKenna, and a few others. I got into Brandeis, Boston College, Case Western, Tufts, and Carnegie Mellon. I got scholarships at Brandeis and Case Western, and I got waitlisted or rejected by the rest. I'm going to be going to Carnegie Mellon, and I'm going to be studying economics and statistics as my major. Val?
Right, so hey everyone, thank you so much for coming. My name's Aryan. I went to Malayati International School where I did the A-level syllabus, which is basically Cambridge's syllabus, the UK syllabus. And I basically applied to a lot of schools all across the US, a little more over than 20. And my early decision was to Duke University, which didn't go through. However, I got into a lot of my early action and regular decision schools. So some of the schools that I've gotten into are UCLA, USC with a quarter scholarship, and Georgia Tech, the University of Michigan, among many others. And now my plan is to go to Cornell University to pursue government and physics right now as a double major. So thank you again for being here, and I hope I'll be able to help you guys out. Harsh?
Thank you, Val. My name is Harsh Mathur, and I went to Bishop Cotton Boys School in Bangalore. So my curriculum was ISC, which is an Indian board. And I applied to like a very wide range of schools, like right from the elite HYPSM, which is Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, and the list actually went all the way down to like some mid-tier schools like UIUC and UC Davis, etc. So I actually ended up getting rejected by a lot of these schools. So my number 2 was like something around 25. And I think I got like rejected from pretty much everything except like 4 to 5. And I was waitlisted at Georgia Tech. I was waitlisted where Isha is going at Carnegie. I was rejected at Cornell where Val's going, and I was also waitlisted by a couple of other colleges. Finally, I got into Johns Hopkins, UIUC, University of Washington, and UC Davis. So I picked Johns Hopkins mainly because I was offered an entire like tuition scholarship. So that's the college I chose, and I will be pursuing mechanical engineering with a little bit of an aerodynamics and aeronautics hint, with a little bit of biomedical as a different subject, like a minor, which I would like to look into. Thank you. Back to sir.
Thanks, Harsh. So thanks for your introduction, guys. And thanks for also letting us know the rejection, because I think it's important for us to know that it's not always that you will win, right? You will always lose few battles and win few. It's important to win the right ones, right? So I think that's going to be the one of the takeaway from this webinar, that it's not that you will get accepted. If you see, there are a lot of universities among these folks which were, let's say, lower rank and they got rejected, and the higher ranks where they got accepted, right? So it's a very different in terms of, so that's why the people say that you should go to a college which is a right fit for you, right? And colleges can see through it. Great, thanks for the great introduction, guys. Now, before we jump onto the actual webinar, I think the entire webinar is divided into 3 segments. So first, we will take few questions on the test prep segment. Second, we will take few questions on the colleges, how the college application process went through. And third, we will take few questions about the academics and the overall profile building, what people are generally worried about, right? Let's start with test prep as a segment first. And I think the first question on the test prep side would be, for all the 3 speakers, I think my question would be, how did you approach your SAT or the ACT? Which one did you choose? And was there a clear indicator in the beginning that you should do an SAT or an ACT? And with that, and if there was anything differently that you could have done, any advice for our students who are joining here, please do that as well. So let's start with Aryan.
Okay, so on the basis of whether I took the SAT or the ACT, normally people take diagnostic tests to determine whether like they're better at one or the other. But I just read about both, and I read somewhere at the time that the ACT is more a test about how well you can answer questions within time and also difficult questions, whereas the SAT gave you a lot of time, but their questions were more like challenging or intricate. For some reason, I just felt like doing the SAT. So I'm happy that it paid off. It took me a couple of attempts before getting my ultimate score, but I started off with my first attempt giving me a 1500 on the SAT. And the way I think you should approach the SAT is that it's ultimately a gating factor for colleges. So it's not the be all end all of anything that colleges are looking for, but rather it's something that helps colleges divide their applicant base into different thresholds or so. So the way that the SAT is basically comprised is it has an English section, which is basically divided into 2, reading and writing. And then it has a math section where there are 2 subsections within it for math. And in my opinion, the SAT kind of has 2 parts in a sense, because writing and mathematics are stuff that actually need to be learned thoroughly by anyone who intends to score well on the SAT. Writing rules for English are extremely important and are extremely usually very well rigid. There are certain exception cases where you might find it that the answer could be this way or that way. But in general, learning your writing rules and learning like the basics of the math you need to solve those sections of the SAT is important. So there's one section of the SAT that requires proper thorough learning, right? But there's another section of there's another aspect to the SAT and ACT, I would say. But obviously I'm speaking with reference to the SAT. The other aspect that I'm talking about is generally the one of mentality and focus. The SAT is a very long test, and sections like reading can be extremely difficult to do if you're not paying specific attention to what you are answering or what you're reading and stuff like that. So what might happen is people might end up rereading passages over and over again because they didn't understand it the first time around or the second time around and stuff like that. So obviously, because of these 2 aspects, the amount of time you should dedicate to studying the SAT could vary based on the person, right? But I would say that it would take a month or a few months for you based on your capabilities to learn the writing and math parts thoroughly. But I would advise that just before the SAT, you try doing as many tests as you can so that you get into that mental preparation stage where you're focusing for nearly 3 hours on writing your exam. Plus, if you take the essay for the SAT, that also makes it even longer. So just remember that it's essentially a mental game plus with a little bit of preparation in it. So it'll vary very individually, and you guys need to figure out what's best for you when it comes to the SAT. So I'll pass it on now to Isha, who did the ACT.
Hi, so I did the ACT. I did it first in the September of grade 11 and then in December of grade 11. So Val covered pretty much everything about the test as a whole, but I'm going to talk about a little bit about which test you should take. So I took the diagnostic test for both, and I did much better on the ACT than the SAT. And simply based on that, I went ahead with the ACT. But I would say definitely play to your strengths when deciding which test you want to take. If your strengths include time management, then I would definitely suggest going for the ACT because you have little less than a minute for a lot of the questions on the sections. And also keep in mind that the ACT is online. A lot of people I know had trouble with the fact that this was online. I personally had a really good experience with the test being online. But if this is something that you maybe can't get behind, then I would suggest maybe considering that before making a decision. And yeah, like you said, I did a lot of full-length tests before. And I would say definitely one thing I learned after my first attempt was to focus on individual sections of the test. Like I focused a lot on the science section of the ACT because I realized I hadn't done so well on that. And that helped bring up my overall score. Harsh, on to you.
Thank you, Isha. So I, unlike these people, was not a natural tester. Like, I think the diagnostic I took was something around an 1100, which is not it's not great at all. My first attempt was like a 1390. So I think I had to pull really hard. And what I realized over my testing is that I approached it as like a test of intelligence, and it's actually not. You just have to weave through it and find your fit. So I actually have a short like a 30-second clip explaining what I felt about the SAT and what it actually is. So let me just like share that with you. I know the audio might be a little low, so please bear with me. It's not a measure of intelligence, and that the SAT is actually more about learning your fit and weaving through tricky questions. It's very simple concepts brought to you in a very tricky capsule, which are the SAT questions. Now, to really hit what I'm saying home, let me give you an example of a type of question that may come. Now, a bat costs $100 more than a ball. Now, let's say their combined price is $110. Now, I need you to tell me what the cost of the ball is. A lot of you may have said $10, when actually, when you do the math, the answer is actually $5. As you could see, the SAT is more of like a trick-based question, which actually are designed to see if you're thinking in the moment. And once I realized that, and I realized that there are tips and tricks you can do to like weave past everything, I did much better. And I think that's the approach you should take. You should take a lot more, a lot of like full-length tests to like practice what you're doing. Analysis is very important. Like whenever you sit on your like mistakes, try really understanding why you made a mistake. Sometimes it's as simple as I was looking at my watch too long, and that actually plays a role in like you getting that particular question wrong. I think Val mentioned that the test is a little bit like lengthy. I found it a little more relaxed because the ACT is a more time crunch and the SAT is a lot more relaxed. So that's why choose your fit. Know that it's not just intelligence, it's tricks, and work towards it. Thank you so much. Back to sir.
So also I received a question in the chat regarding our scores. So I think we should probably let them know. So my best SAT score was, my best flat SAT score was a 1570. And my super score for the SAT was a 1590, where I got an 800 in math and a 790 in English, basically translating to about 1 or 2 mistakes in English.
So my first attempt score was a 34 and I would have been fine with that, but my math score was disproportionately low. So I worked on math and my second attempt score was 35. My super score was also 35, so that didn't matter. Harsh?
Thanks, Isha. So mine, I'm like not nearly as good as any of these two. Mine is like I scored an 800 in math because math is my strength, but my English is terrible. I got like a 720, and like Isha said, like she had to retake it because of the disproportionate math score. But I just had to play with what I got best, so that was the best I could do. So that gave me a final total score, a super score of 1520 on the SAT.
Thanks, guys. For all the participants here, if you can put in the message directly on the chat, on a regular chat rather than personal, I think it'll be easier for me to keep a track. And there we have some team members who are keeping a track, right? Okay, thanks for your answer, guys. Anyways, I think SAT and in general is a much wider topic. I think in terms of, so I think we will be doing another webinar where we'll be explaining you what SAT are, what ACTs are, how you should decide between the two tests. But thanks for an attempt to explain it, guys. With that, let's move on to the next question. And again, in the test prep segment, how did you approach your subject SAT, and how many subject SAT did you guys write? And based on your research and the colleges that you have applied, how important do you think subject SATs are, right? So these are probably some of the questions revolving around the subject SATs. And maybe this time let's start with maybe with Harsh.
Thank you, sir. So I did well on my subject SATs. That's because like I'm more equipped to answering questions which have a little more knowledge going into them, like a little more theory, like in physics and math. So I took the physics subject SAT and the math level 2 subject SAT, and I scored an 800 on both. And I got that on my first attempt, and that was a little bit of a relief because I'm not suited to the regular SAT. So I played to my strengths there and worked towards getting best score I could, and thankfully it was the perfect score. What I was relieved to learn, like first time I gave a diagnostic test, like what I realized is that you can get a few wrong answers, and like someone who was like kind of solving the Indian JE papers, where when you get a mistake you're marked a negative 0.25. That was a relief. So it's not that much of like a testing crunch. It's a little more relieved test compared to the tests we're used to, the MCQs in India. But yeah, you still require prep. What really helped me are the official SAT subject SAT tests. So these were like really helpful. Now, why you should take the subject SATs is that some colleges have that as a requirement. For example, Caltech actually takes only math level 2. So what you should do when deciding what subject tests to take is go and look at your colleges, the one you want to go to, and see what they accept. So usually, like STEM colleges, I'm a STEM student, like that's science, tech, engineering, math. So they love seeing one science and one math test. So that's why I picked those two subject tests. And a lot of people actually write more to demonstrate that they can do well on tests. So that's another reason people pick tests. And yeah, so play to your strengths and pick the right tests according to your college and your ability. I would like to pass it on to Val.
Right. So basically, my whole logic when it came to the subject stats is they contribute to a certain view of you as a candidate to colleges. So colleges are looking for rigor, and they're looking for people who are willing to take a lot to challenge themselves and effectively try scoring well. So the subject stats are just an opportunity to basically do the same. I took the math subject sat and the physics subject sat, and I got an 800 in both. Unlike the SAT, which is out of 1600, each individual subject sat is out of 800. So I took those two just because I felt that math level 2 was kind of necessary, and physics was another one I chose to do purely on the basis of interest. But generally, I have no other real advice for it. It'll take maybe a month or a little longer for someone to prepare. It depends on, again, individual capabilities. but these are more grounded than the SAT. So it's very possible for you to pick up the correct books, like maybe Barron's Physics or whichever it is, and just prepare from them and get good at it. Isha, do you have anything to add?
So I did math level 2, physics, and I did literature, which is something a lot of people don't do. So I did math level 2 and physics, and I got an 800 in each because I was a STEM student and I was applying to a lot of STEM schools. I did literature. I chose literature because of my application, because in my application and a lot of my essays, I mentioned that, even though I'm a STEM student, I'm I like and I'm good at other subjects and other humanities. And I hadn't studied literature as a subject in either grade 10 or grade 12. So demonstrating that, the subject stats gave me an opportunity to demonstrate my passion for and my skills at literature. And I got a 750 in literature, which is a 90 percentile.
Thanks guys. Thanks for your answer. With that, I think let's move on to the next question. And that's again in the test prep segment, which is largely about should one do APs? I will just give you a quick brief introduction about APs. So APs are basically stands for Advanced Placement Courses. These are basically college level course that some kids, it's not must to do, it's a good to do kind of course. It's not like SAT and subject SAT, hence not everybody writes it. There are various reasons why people write advanced placement courses. One of the reasons is you get credits while you are in India. So it's more important for, let's say, somebody who is coming from a CBSE and ICSE background, because their course sometimes don't give you credits as much as what the IB and AS A-level course would do. And hence it's important to do the AP if in case you wish to get credits. So that's one. B, because you get credits, you obviously save cost. So I think that's another important thing. Third, you save time, right? So you could get your degree early if in case you have done few courses earlier. So you save time and money again there. Fourth reason, which again, it's a debatable option, because some people say that it helps you to strengthen your application, though there's no clear-cut indicator or the colleges saying very openly that they require APs. But it's, again, there are different thoughts about it. And hence I would like to take up this question and see what our folks have done here. Let's start with Isha again. Isha, have you done any AP? And if yes, what was your score like and what is your thought on it?
So I did AP Calculus AB and I got a 5. And for me, the actual exam was right in the middle of my AS level board exams. So that's why I couldn't take more APs or take the higher level of calculus, that is BC. So I self-studied for it and I made sure to demonstrate that, to specify that on my application and in my interviews. And mainly because I just wanted to, like Aryan said, demonstrate my skills as a test taker and just demonstrate a general interest in math, because I was applying for an economics and mathematics major at colleges. Harsh?
Hi, thank you, Isha. So basically, for me, I did not take the AP, and I come from like an Indian board, like CBSE, ISC background. So like I knew that like you could take these tests to add to credits in colleges, but I still did not do it because for one, I heard that some colleges prefer it if you did the same course from their in-house faculty rather than like transferring credits from like the AP. And the larger reason I didn't take it is because they were expensive for me. So like that's the median household I come from. So I like the APs are actually an investment, and like doing one or two really doesn't matter. If you do 5, then it may show, colleges that you can handle the college rigor. But I personally thought that I could demonstrate that with like other tests, like the ones that I'm available to, like Olympiads and JE, etc. But that's the reason I did not write the AP, because the time consuming process of the APs was not worth it, and neither was putting in the money for it. That was my take on it. And like I ended up just fine. I didn't it didn't play that big a role in any of my acceptances. So yeah, over to Val.
So basically, my mentality when it came to the APs was I was an A-level student, and I primarily thought of the APs as a way to obtain credit for college. Of course, it does show them your ability as a test maker, but really that's what it came down to at the end of the day, right? So in my opinion, I just wanted to focus more on the other tests like the subject sats. So I never really took the APs, but I can provide insight from a college perspective. So personally for me at Cornell, I receive between 4 to about 16, 20 credits of coursework in college. I get placed out of those courses because I had done 4 A-level subjects. If you do further AP subjects, they would help you get credit for certain courses. But obviously, if there is an overlap, that might not be the case. It really depends on which specific AP you do. So internationally recognized boards like the A-level board or the IB board automatically give you credit for certain courses. So let's say you're a physics student pursuing the A levels, you might get placed out of 1 or 2 physics courses at college because you have done it earlier. But if you're from a board like ISC or CBSE and you feel like you want credit, then doing an AP exam in a similar field will help you get credit for that thing in college. But if you are an A-level IB student, you need to and you're looking for APs purely for credit, you need to plan on which one you're doing, because you might already be receiving credit for it based on your courses. And if you actually go to Google and then type in what courses credit you get for what board for whichever college, like for example, if I typed in getting credit from A-level Cornell, I would get usually colleges have a webpage explaining that to you. But just again, in summary, try making sure that things don't overlap. If you're looking for APs as a form of credit, if you're looking to challenge yourselves and show the colleges that you're willing to challenge yourselves, then that's something you'd want to do for the APs.
Right. I think just to sum up and add few things, I think the way one should look at is, let's prioritize it, right? So the grades of your 9 to 12 is your topmost priority. Then the SET, then the subject SETs, and then probably the APs, right? That's the order of priority. If the first top 3 things are sorted, then you look for the fourth one. Otherwise, you still try and make sure you're the first top 3 things, which are must to do, is in good shape. That's one. Just to add another thing, see, if you're writing it to strengthen your application, you will have to do this exam, because this happens only once a year. You will have to write it in your grade 11. Right, grade 11 summer break is when you'll have to write it, where you are also bogged down with a lot of other things that you have to catch up. So make sure if you have time, then you do it. Otherwise, you can skip it. Whereas if you're writing it purely for your credit sake, then you can also write it after your 12th grade, because by the time you're very sure which colleges you're going to, and in that case, you know this particular college accepts credits for what all subjects, right? And then you can plan your AP courses after your 12th exam in the May month, right? Before you land to the college, and that will help you to save time, credit, and money both, right? With that, I think we are running short of time. Let's try and move on to the next question. I think next segment, we will move on to academics and the profile. And I think, not sure how much this question mattered to these guys. I think I'll quickly take this. So guys, in your opinion, how much does school grades and standardized testing scores matter in your overall application per se? Let's start with Harsh, probably.
So thank you, sir. So I think like the SAT is just like a benchmark kind of thing where you demonstrate that you can do, like you can look at like basic problems, and like your fundamentals are fine, and it's not like a make or break. It's not nearly the equivalent of like an Indian entrance exam, or which says that, you know, like in an Indian entrance exam, if you do well on that, that is the only criteria that gets you into the college. That's not nearly the case. The SAT is merely a small indicator of you being like able to do, you know, like reasonable fundamentals. problems. And yeah, so once you have hit that benchmark, like whatever the benchmark is for your college, like in my personal opinion, like 1450 upwards is like good for like even the top most colleges. And that
I think there's some network issue. Val, you are on mute. Can you continue?
Yeah. So basically, it's you should really just look at them in terms of as gating factors. You will hear multiple things over the course of your college career. You might hear, oh, 1450 plus is good, 1500 plus is good, 1550 plus is necessary if you want to get into the top colleges, all that kind of stuff. But I can personally tell you that from what I know about my peers at Cornell, in my experience, I've encountered people who have gotten all the way from about 1480 to about to near 1600. So it's a very wide span. Your goal should just be to get the best score you get. It's ultimately a gating factor that allows them to distinguish between their applicants, considering that they get like thousands of them in every cycle.
Yeah, Isha.
So I think Harsh and Aryan pretty much covered it. It really depends on your strengths. And if standardized testing isn't one of your strengths, then I just strengthen other aspects of your application instead.
Correct. I guess just to add here, right, what Aryan rightly said, so the way I see SET is it's not a selection criteria, guys. It's an elimination criteria, right? So you just need to cross a threshold so that at least your application is considered and your essays are being read there and your overall profile is being seen, right? So you don't want to. So at same point of time, try and get your best, whatever you can. It could be 1480, 1500, 1550, 1580, but don't overdo it. Try and after a point of time, try and start focusing on other part of your application. Right, so it's not a selection criteria. Even with a 1590, it's not like you have a seat blocked in Stanford or an MIT or a Cornell, right? And even with a 1480, it's not like you don't have a chance in any of these colleges. So I think that's really important. It's not a selection criteria; it's an elimination criteria. So it's more like you need an entry in the gate, right? Okay, next, I think we'll move to the next segment about the college prep and the application. I think the first question I'll take from there, which says, I'm not a US citizen. Do I still have a chance to get into top college? And do I still have a chance to get scholarship? Specifically in your cases individually, guys, if you can throw some light. Let's start with Harsh here.
Oh, thank you, sir. So my philosophy over here is that colleges are...
Okay, there's network issue again. Val, can you move?
Yeah, ultimately, I'm not a US citizen either. So I would say that US citizens have slightly higher chances of getting into any given college, considering the fact that colleges take a large number of American citizens. But it's not impossible, obviously, because a lot of us here aren't American citizens, and a lot of my peers weren't American citizens. It's just that you are going to be seen. Most colleges try to look at applications region based anyway. So a lot of colleges will probably look at India and a bunch of other surrounding countries as one region and compare you to other Indian applicants, not to the American standard. So as a result, your goal should try to be competitive among your own peers in terms of applications. So you shouldn't be looking at it from an American citizen standpoint. Rather, you should just be looking at it from an individual standpoint. I believe that you can still get scholarships and get admissions even if you're not an American citizen.
Yeah, I agree with them. You do have a slight edge if you are an American citizen. And it also helps if you look at the demographic of the college you are applying to. Like one of the colleges I was applying to had a demographic of, I think, some 70% white students. And obviously that means that they would have a lower quota for brown students or Indian students. But other colleges might have 30% white undergrads. So that also might play a factor in whether the nationality is a barrier or not.
Right.
So am I audible now?
Yes, Harsh, we can hear you if you have
Okay.
anything to add. Yeah.
Right. So, so my philosophy was that colleges are like exactly like parents who like, and parents actually just nurture you the best they can. And so it's like so they give you the resources necessary, and then you go ahead and do well in life. But unfortunately, the selection is based on uh, past past achievements, right? And like they are like staunch believers of the fact that your past like achievements are like determine your future achievements. So that's why they look at what you've done up till this point, and then they like predict that you're going to do well later in life as well. So that's the small unfortunate bit of the process. But in the end, it's not that you cannot get there. Like the simple answer to that question is yes, we like Indian citizens can get there. All three of us are Indian citizens, and like all of us have received scholarship in some form. And so like what I would recommend is to go and do what you do best. And a lot of people ask me like, what do I do for colleges? It's not that you should do things for colleges. Like I say that you should do great things in your field, and that's exactly what I did. I went out and did everything related to an airplane, and at least I tried to do everything related to airplanes and like flying them, etc. And then let colleges decide. It's not that you should tailor yourself towards a college, and you just being yourself is like a major plus. And like that's how I think like I like as an international got scholarships, because they saw that I was genuinely interested in the field rather than just beefing up a lot of extracurriculars just for the application. So I think that's what's necessary. Like even I was also like very passionate about testing, and like so that's why I gave like a few like Indian entrances. And a lot of people ask me, does this count in like American universities? I didn't think of it that way. What I thought was I'm demonstrating my passion to like problem solve STEM questions, and like that would probably show in the application later. Don't be too worried about what matters and what doesn't. Just do what you do best, and that's the best way to like go ahead in that process.
Yeah, I guess to sum it up, and I think we had last time we had two students who were the US citizen and applying from India. I think they answered that question in a slightly different way. I'll just quote that, and I'll also share the link of that last webinar here on the chat for you guys to go back and hear what they said about this answer. So when you're applying, right, during your application process, you would, even if you are a US citizen, you would still be competing with all the Indian students for your admissions process, right? You will still be considered as an Indian, as an international pool student. Once you get into the college, you are considered under a different quota. You will be considered under a quota, which is a state quota, or let's say for that, let's say for the US quota per se, right? So it's a very tricky term in terms of, in the beginning, when you are applying, you're competing still with your peers from India because you have done your 11th and 12th outside of US and not from US. But once you get in, your pool is considered differently. What Isha was talking about, right? There was a college where 70% were, let's say, American. So you will be counted in that 70%, though while you're during your admission process, you will be considered as an international pool, right? But having said that, yes, you do have an advantage for the scholarships, whether it's tuition fee waiver or any of those. I think it's more likely that you will get it if you are an US citizen rather than an international citizen, right? With that, let's move on to the next question. And probably because we have less time, I think I'll start moving to two speakers for each question now. I think the next is, I don't know which subject I wish to study in college. Will that affect my admission? And I will probably take Isha and Aryan here in this because they have a very different perspective on this. Let's start with Aryan on this. Aryan, you're on mute.
So basically, I still do not know what I really want to do at college. There are certain, I have, right now, I'm starting off with government and physics as my majors because those are the subjects that interested me the most. But in reality, I have no idea where my potential career would be or what field it could be and stuff like that. And I, especially like now, I might have more clarity considering that I'm doing government in physics. But when I was applying, I did not have said clarity. So one thing that what really matters, which we will get to in the next question, which is basically about what colleges are looking for. One thing that matters is that you showed demonstrated interest in a certain area. So I showed a large amount of demonstrated interest in the government field, and it just happened to be that way. It wasn't like I planned it and that I thought I have to apply for government and that's why I'm going to do all this. But it just happened to be that I had done a lot of activities related to government from 9th grade, which then allowed me to show that I had interest in it. And then I even explicitly told Cornell that flexibility was something I needed because I did not know where exactly, frankly, I wanted to go with my life. Rather, I was interested in areas and I wish to explore them at this university. So there's no disadvantage you will get by not knowing what subject you want to do, especially in the US, because the United States probably has some of the most flexible colleges in the entire world, where you are allowed to kind of go in with one subject and come out with a completely different one in most, based on your interests. But the interest that you have in a subject is what you need to even get in the first place. So that's what matters.
So when I was applying, I was very clear that I wanted to study economics and either mathematics or statistics, depending on the college. And I tailored my application to that, in the sense that I wrote an economics research paper. In my essays, I connected a couple of my volunteer activities to economic concepts. And basically having a clear idea of which major I wanted to study gave me that opportunity to streamline my application. But I would definitely, not having an idea of what you want to study would definitely not hinder your application in any way. In fact, it gives you different types of strengths that you could demonstrate in your application. Like you could demonstrate like that maybe you're an all-rounder in terms of various subjects or anything else.
Great, thanks guys. Let's move on to the next question, which is again related to college. Should one give preference to college ranking or the major that they're applying for, or the cost and scholarship that they are getting while they are deciding about the college you are applying for? Or let's say once you get an acceptance, you would like to join, right? And let's probably start with Harsh on this.
Thank you, sir. So what I would say is that it's very case to case. I mean, in the end, it does come down a little bit to affordability. And that was the main factor for me. So for example, over here, I was accepted at Johns Hopkins and UIUC. Like these were the two I was very confused about, because UIUC is amazing in my field. It's one of the premier colleges in aerospace and mechanical engineering, and JSU was also, Johns Hopkins was also really good, but it was not as good as UIUC in terms of the subject. But I still picked Johns Hopkins because of the fact that the affordability was much better for there.
Okay, Isha, can you take it up?
So like Harsh said, it really depends on your priority and it depends on your major. Like there are some majors where certain colleges are much better suited to others, but there are some majors where they're really common majors, maybe they're not very research based majors, and maybe just general in terms of that, that the college you're applying to doesn't necessarily factor in. Like someone I was talking to, he said, you know what, most colleges have a good engineering program. I'm focusing on other aspects of the college, like maybe housing, maybe location, other factors. And in terms of ranking and brand name, it's really personal. For me, ranking and brand name especially was really important, which is why I chose CMU over Tufts. For other people, that might not necessarily be so.
Great, thanks for your answer. Well, do you want to add anything to this?
Basically, for someone who clearly is hell-bent on a certain major, it might be necessary for you to consider the best colleges for those majors. But what I would say is that if there are certain colleges which are very close together in number, whether you're looking at rankings for a certain major and stuff, it's probably best that you start looking at other factors that matter to you. For me personally, I wanted a college that was very good at basically all majors, because I again, at the time wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Now I've kind of settled into government and physics. But they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? And I wanted a college that could do both. So for me, I was always looking at the best overall ranking when it came to colleges. And it happened to be that the best overall ranking college for me was also the best major related college for me. So really just start creating your college list, start looking at what applications actually went through, where you get admitted. And then from there, I think you should take a decision on that.
Yeah, so sorry for like poor connection. Basically, yeah, similar to what Val said. You don't have to gun behind the big brand names like MIT and Harvard and Stanford, etc. They're good to have on your application, your college list, but it's not necessary. You have to go there to end up, wherever you want to be in your career. So keep that in mind, and keep in mind that your subject, like whatever you're good at, like whatever the colleges are like specializing in your particular subject. If you know what you want to do, or if you don't know what you want to do, that also plays a factor. So yeah, so look at it that way, and like hope for the best.
Right. I think just to sum it up, two things, right? Either you are a student who is not very sure what major you wish to apply for. In that case, try for the top ranked college, right? Just because you're not very sure about what stream you would like to pursue. On the other hand, let's say if you're very clear about what major you would like to do, just like Isha, in that case, you could go by the ranking of the individual major ranking rather than trying to go specific to the top rank college, which may not be the top rank for your stream that you wish to apply for, right? So I think that could be one criteria, the way you can look at in terms of what colleges you can apply for. And obviously one of the major factor is scholarship or the cost. I think that's another thing that you people do keep in mind. The other factor is sometimes people do look at if they have family around that state, so that I think the kids are much safer there and there is a family around to just go and visit, right? I think these are multiple factors which parents do keep in mind, and I'm sure you can account for that as well. With that, let's move on to the next question. And I think this is a much wider question, which is, I think a lot of people have this doubt about. I can see a lot of people asking different doubts, saying about the profile building as a word, right? So what should you be doing to build the profile? I think the question would be, what do colleges want? Again, in your opinion, guys, and how should one start for that? And I would say be very specific in terms of what you have done in the last 3 to 4 years, whether you are sure about the degree, the major or not, but in terms of in general, in the last 4 years towards your college prep, what all have you done to, let's say, the so-called profile building, right? And let's start with Aryan here.
Yeah, so basically what I wanted to tell everyone here is that it's really important that you remember that the college process as a whole has a large amount of probability in it, a large amount of luck and just general random factors. I cannot stress this enough, but it is really a shot that you're taking, and you do not really know where it's going to land. So keep that in mind during this entire process. But what I would say is what colleges are looking for is, obviously your grades aren't supposed to be like unrealistically high, or your SAT is unrealistically high. Take it from me, because even my statistics prove that, and I got rejected from a lot of universities. But basically those are gating factors. What they're really looking for is this thing that I would like to refer to as a spike. And what spikes, obviously there are people who might have contrasting perspectives on this, but this is how it worked out for me. And I know that a lot of counselors or people in general could give you a general advice in saying, oh, this is a spike and this is what you should have and stuff. But I'm going to give you specific examples in the hope that it might give you an actual understanding of what I mean. But basically a spike shows a great amount of demonstrated interest in a certain area, whether it is physics, whether it is government, whatever it is. If you show a large amount of interest in a certain area, that is a spike. And it also could be a personality trait that basically is very important to you and is something that makes up who you are. That is a spike. So colleges are looking for people who obviously have a spike, meaning they've shown great interest in certain fields, but have gone well and above to actually vary their spike from the competition and show that they're genuinely interested in something and they're actually going to do good when they come into this university. So my spike was very clearly in government. And here's the thing. Basically, when I was going to apply to college, I initially contemplated doing physics because I wanted to do a STEM subject, and that's what I thought I was going to apply to college. But the thing about the United States system in particular, as opposed to other countries, is that it's extremely flexible and you can go in with one major and come out with a different one. So I ended up changing my plans and applying for government primarily to get into college, or international relations, whichever one it is. And then from there, I knew I was going to pursue government because it was my interest, but I could also do whatever else it was that I wanted to do. So you should apply for that particular spike. So the way my spike translated was I had, obviously there were the grades, SAT and general academic honors aside. My essays, basically my primary essay for colleges was this piece I wrote called Argumentation and I, which spoke about how I, as a human being, ever since I was a kid, loved to talk, loved to argue, and basically get my points across to different people, and how that led to me loving public speaking forums. So I loved generally doing MUN or debate or whatever it was. And I even loved writing essays and expressing my thoughts and my arguments in written form. So that personality trait translated into something that made me love government is what I told colleges. And then I proceeded to show that I had actually loved government for a fair amount of time, and I had put in work to it. So some of the things that I did were I tried thinking of ways that basically your spike can be differentiated from others. And I thought of ways that I could show that, hey, I'm interested in government, but I did unique things that put me apart from other people who do government, because ultimately at the end of the day, you're trying to sell yourself to college. So I went ahead and I interviewed diplomats who I found connections with. I went and interviewed the Israeli consul general for Bangalore for India, basically. And I wrote this piece called A Journey of a Diplomat, which was just about a 4-page sheet where I had compiled my interview with her. I had also interviewed other multinational companies. I had engaged in Model United Nations. But the thing about Model United Nations is a lot of people across India do it. So I had to find a way to differentiate myself as it. So in addition to just being a chair or a delegate at Model United Nations, I started a Model United Nations in my own school. I was part of this program called MUN for India. I was part of its first iteration, where it was basically a MUN held for underprivileged students. So it was a free of cost MUN where I would chair, and we basically conducted a professional MUN for those who generally could not have afforded it. Stuff like that. One of the times I had chaired was at the actual UN itself through this MUN called YMUN, basically. So a lot of things like that contributed. And I had shown, I had other interests as well, like guitar, drama, etc. But those are the ones that I kind of put to the side and also expressed in addition to my main major. So when people ask, hey, how did a certain 1480 person get into college or stuff like that? It's for these kind of reasons. Ultimately, colleges are looking at a holistic application, but having a spike greatly helps, because then it shows colleges that you have genuine interest. And if you meet all these criteria, obviously your extracurriculars matter. The most important ones would be extracurriculars that show leadership roles, or show that you have done something that other people don't do. Basically, those are the kind of things that you need to start looking at, and then colleges judge you on that holistic basis. But basically, to wrap it up, I wanted to say that ultimately, I did not know what college was really right for me. But I can say with certainty that the colleges I got were very clearly right. And why that happened was because option A, I got rejected from schools based off luck and the system, or option B, I was not a good fit for the schools I got rejected from. One of the things that really draws me to Cornell, which I currently got into, was that they recognized that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but they recognized I had a great passion for government and I had a great passion for physics and stuff like that. And knowing that they're a college who was very good at both, it made perfect sense for them to take a candidate like me who was what they were looking for. I also had other interesting extracurriculars like an obsession for vinyl records and drama and guitar, basketball and stuff like that. But they were looking for an interesting candidate who met all these criteria. So at the end of the day, you're going to probably get into the college that's best for you. So don't take rejections too hard. Just know that they're a stepping stone in the entire process, but you should try being the best kind of applicant you could possibly be. There is no guarantee you will get to any university, but there is a guarantee that you'll probably get into a university that will still do their job right for you. Isha, do you want to take it from here? I believe you have a slightly contrasting perspective.
Yeah, so I'll speak from the perspective of the college where I finally wound up, CMU. So CMU, like all colleges have their own agenda. Obviously, they want the smart kids who will, do wonders for their academic reputation. But they also want students who are going to bolster their student community as a whole too, whether in terms of culture, extracurriculars, etc. So in my application, I try to mirror that same duality that the colleges wanted. And I put equal focus on academics and things related to my major, and also on my more creative side. So when I had my economics research paper, I had my work with the right to education, but I also focused a lot on dance. I'm a dancer, and I had lots of, exams, performances, etc. I spoke about my experience with theater, my experience with public speaking, and I tried to basically demonstrate that I was equally passionate about these two different aspects of both my personality and college life as a whole. And CMU is a place that definitely, it might have a reputation for being very academic oriented, but it also is a place that puts a lot of value into its own culture, its own student community, and other things like that. And I feel that because of this, I've wound up at a place that really fits my personality and my application as a whole.
Right, over to Harsh.
Right, so like these two have covered like most of everything, but what I would like say on that note is really to apply sideways. Now, what is applying sideways? So it's basically a concept where you do the best you can in your own abilities, in your own interests, and in your own realm, and placing that on the application. Think of it this way. This is something like I spoke to one of the other coordinators at ReWiser. So we were talking about how to get into like the best places, how to get into Harvard, etc. And then I think the coordinator responded by saying, giving me an example of someone who really likes reading. Like there's someone who really loves reading, and what she has done is she has taken reading to such a level and such like such a fan base that a lot of authors now send their first drafts to her to really understand how that plans out to the other audiences, because she started making book clubs. She started with that, and then she went on ahead and then created that realm for her. So after, like, she told me this impressive story of how something as simple as reading became such a large thing. She asked me that, what do you think? Do colleges want this girl, or does this girl really need the colleges? And that's what really, stands out. I think that colleges are just like a small stepping stone to what you would need to do, in the future. In STEM, like a lot of, new companies they don't really care about like the degrees of that, of your, they don't really care about your degrees per se anymore. They just want that knowledge. And what you should imagine it as is that the colleges are just like a supplementing factor to your journey. So in my case also, I thought that I should do whatever I thought was best, and then go ahead with my journey, and then just see whatever I could like take from colleges and go ahead. So doing whatever you feel best is the best way forward. The first step is to like learn what you want, and that's the best way you can like really do well. So that's what I have to say. Like profile building is just like you doing your own stuff. There's no curveball to it. There's no difference to it. If there was a list, that told you if you do these things you will get into a college, I mean everyone would start doing them. It's not like that. It's basically you being yourself, and whoever takes you, that's the best community to go to because they really want you. So that's what I would say.
Okay, specifically guys, before we wrap up this FAQ round, Isha, can you quickly list down your extracurricular that you have done and till what level have you done them, right?
Okay, so I'm a Kathak dancer, and I've taken exams and performances with the Prachin Kala Kendra. And once I finish one more performance now, I'll have the equivalent to a bachelor's degree in dance. And I highlighted that in my application and interviews. I was very involved in theater at school in grade 11, theater, script writing. I did a lot of public speaking. And fun fact, even if you are very heavily involved in your school, maybe in terms of, planning graduation, being part of like maybe the committee for, the dance, the music fest, annual fest, whatever, you can actually demonstrate that in your Common App. It's under the section of school spirit. So I had a lot of school spirit in that sense. Other than that, I did work with the Right to Education Act. I tutored RT kids at school. I wrote an economics research paper.
Great. Yeah, I think Val has already mentioned what all he did, and so has Harsh. Right, thanks guys. I think let's move on to the Q&A sessions now. I think you folks have already done a good job in answering most of the questions, but let me start picking a few questions which are not yet answered, and we can see if we can take those questions. Audience, please feel free to put in your questions now. We'll try and see if there's any question that we have not taken up yet. My son is in 11th. When is the ideal time to take subject SATs? I think both Aryan and Harsh has already answered. I think the right time would be after your grade 11 because subject SATs will require you to have your 11th grade knowledge and some topics from 12th grade as well, depending on the curriculum that you are pursuing. So definitely after 11th, so could be 11th summer break. And as Isha mentioned, in the 12th, either June, now there is an additional date of August. So June, August, October. December is also fine, but may not be good for the ED early edition if in case you are applying for that. That's the answer for this.
So generally, sorry chat if we couldn't answer everyone's question. So if any of us missed your questions, please put them again now. There's one college that's about research papers. I was saying that research papers don't have to be published. The way I shared them with colleges was basically, so I applied using this thing called the Common Application. You can use whichever platform you want, but via the Common Application, there's a section called additional information where you have like 600 words to express anything additionally you'd want colleges to know. So what I did was I put an excerpt from my paper, like maybe like one paragraph over there. And then I provided them a link to my drive where I made the paper public in case they wanted to see the whole thing. But the excerpt was such that it was enough that even if they don't go to the drive, they have a rough idea of what I was trying to do with the paper. The point is the paper exists, and the point is the paper showed an interesting concept, which is what matters. If you can get your papers published, that's even greater. It adds more credibility to you. But I didn't have to do that. If you want to do a science-related paper, maybe you can get in touch with the professor, like Harsh said.
Yeah,
so I think, so just share the abstract. So this depends. Like I had an interesting experience. There are some colleges which explicitly have a separate section. For example, like MIT has a different like research portfolio. So you can submit like the abstract of your research paper with another letter from someone who's helped you with the research. that's one. Like most colleges don't have this provision, so it's best to like yeah, an abstract works, whatever represents your paper best. If it's published, you might want to put that in your like achievements, or if that achievement section is full and your extracurricular section is full, maybe mention it in your additional information. But if you're a STEM student, I would recommend putting that on your 10 extracurriculars, because getting a paper published is a big deal, and yeah, that would like really add weight to your research arc.
Right. So there's another question I think the answer has asked: is CAS work taken under consideration by colleges as extracurriculars? So I think none of these speakers are from IB background, but yes, CAS is taken into consideration when they are accounting for the extracurriculars. Could you give your 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grades? Guys, can you quickly give out your grades? Let's start with Isha. 9th to 12th, if in case you remember.
I don't remember my ninth grade results. I think they were mid 90s, late 90s. In ICSE, I got 95%. AS level, there's a board exam for at the AS level, 11th grade, and at the A level, that's the 12th grade, in case any of you don't know. So I got an A, which is the highest grade for physics, chem, math, English, and economics. At the A level, I got an A star for physics, chemistry, economics, mathematics, and an A in English language.
Val?
Right. So basically, my grades, the thing is the US works on this system called GPA, which is grade point average. And when you're applying to the US, your school will convert, or you must, your school will convert and the colleges will recalculate your GPA. The thing is, the way the US system works is they work on like a semester basis, right? So it's a continuous process of learning. Whereas in our case, you have a midterm and a final term, and the final exam counts for a lot more than your main exams. So they don't really get that system. So you will have to map into that. But that's just something that you needed to know. In either case, my grades roughly revolved around A's or A pluses or A stars, as we call them in AS and A level. In my 10th grade boards, I had done about so I had done 9 IG subjects, out of which I got 8 A stars and 1 A in French. And in the 11th grade, the highest grade you can get in your board exams is an A, where I got an A in physics, math, chem, bio, thinking skills, and a bunch of other subjects which I was also doing in 12th, including and English literature and stuff like that. So my subjects, by the way, were basically in the 11th and 12th grade, it was those subjects. It was PCMB, English, and global perspectives. So really, if you see, I wasn't really in the humanities stream, but I ended up doing something humanities related. So if you have a question about how that's possible, it's basically just that you need to still have demonstrated interest in an area and apply for that. And then once you get into college, you can figure out what you really want to do, especially in the US. Also, for your research papers, put them up on Google Drive, and then give them a link, give colleges a link, because there's no real other way to send them. So don't put them on social media, just put them on Google Drive.
Yes. Thanks, Val. Harsh, can you share your scores quickly?
Right. So yeah, absolutely. So I think my ninth was something around like 89%. 10th was 96, 11th was also like 89%, and 12th was around 91%. So this is ISC. I think more important than what exactly the scores are, it should be like something you could translate to the American system well, because the more you translate things, like there are some things they are not acquainted with. Like I think they now know that there are a lot of applications coming from India, so they know how the system works. But it's best to translate whatever you do to that, like whatever they understand best. Sometimes percentages work, and it's also like best to tell them what it means in their system, so that like as soon as they see your application, it's absolutely clear, and like they can compare it with absolutely everyone. So that's another good thing to do.
That's very true, because the US system is very familiar with their own form of education. So percentages give them some form of an indication. But roughly, if you want to know translations that probably, the very rough translations, would be if you get an A or above in a subject, it probably will translate to a 4 on their GPA system out of 4. It will probably reflect 4 out of 4. If you get a B, it might be a 3.7 or something like that. So that's how roughly it kind of translates. So the best kind of GPA you could get according to the US system would be if you got all A's and A stars. If you get something low, obviously like they'll counter and you'll get whatever GPA you get in the end, at the end of the day, but know that we don't really map into the system. So again, your priority should just be to get the best grades you can.
Also,
yeah, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
No. You can continue. It's fine. I was going to answer the research paper question after you.
More than grades, they're looking at consistent performance. Like for me specifically, I did fairly well in my pre-boards, and those weren't necessary, but I still submitted them because they showed overall consistency in my academics.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, there's a question about app fees. Like,
what is that question?
There's a question about like application fees. Like, I had like a different.
It varies between colleges, but some colleges like the Ivies charge you a lot.
No. So I think his question asks like, because like we're applying to like 20 plus.
Sorry, Harsh, cut off again.
Okay, I think the question was, since you are applying to 20 plus colleges, when did you start? I mean, what was the app fee, essays, recommendation letter? How long did it take to apply for so many colleges?
So it might feel like there's a lot of money, because when you convert it into fees, like 20 colleges is a lot. So what I did was there's a fee waiver within the common app. So I explained to my counselor that I couldn't it's not doable for me. So what she did is that all the counselor has to do is like check a box saying that the student requires, a fee waiver. And once that's checked, all your applications can go for no charge. And I think this year they're a little more generous. So there are two ways to do it, either this or you directly contact the colleges and say you require a fee waiver.
Right. So I also wanted to answer a bunch of other questions. First of all, the PSAT, which is the practice SAT, cannot be taken by an Indian citizen. You have to be an American citizen if you're taking the PSAT. So if you're American and you want to get like a trial of what the SAT is, then sure, you can take the PSAT. But from what I know, the PSAT and the SAT scores can be extremely disproportionate for a lot of people.
Well, I'll answer that. So I guess Ritika has this question. Ritika, so PSAT, if in case you are an Indian citizen or let's say non-US citizen, is just a pure practice SAT test. So if you wish to take it, you can go ahead and take it. A lot of schools in Bangalore make it mandatory for the kids to do it. It gives you some understanding in terms of where you stand, but because it's a small pool of students who is taking PSAT as opposed to who are taking SAT, I think you will see a disproportionate results in terms of PSAT and SAT. That's one. Secondly, sorry, if in case you are a US citizen, it's important or it's good to write the PSAT in grade 11. When you write the PSAT in grade 11, it's also known as NMSQT, which is National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. But this is applicable only if you write your PSAT when you are in your junior year, which is in your grade 11, right? And you have to be a US citizen. Otherwise, PSAT, there is no additional value, and there is no college which will have a field in their application process to ask your PSAT scores.
Now, Srinivasan asked the question regarding research papers. First of all, if you're writing unpublished research papers, there's no pattern like the way I did. What I just did was I did things that I found interesting. So I wanted to ask multinational companies how they are helping foster relations between countries. So I just asked them, and then I wrote down my questions and what the company had told me. And I just proceeded to do that for a couple of company heads. For my other paper, which was on differentiated responsibilities, which was an international relations concept, I basically just wrote an extended essay, which was a very long essay, but it effectively counted as a research paper because I did research for it and I cited sources. If you're writing a formal one, obviously there might be some sort of format to it, but just as long as you're citing and as long as you're not plagiarizing, I think your format should be okay. Whatever format you decide to go with.
Yeah. Uh, okay.
Also, remember, research papers aren't. I expressed my research papers as like my fourth extracurricular because a lot of people, especially Indians, do research papers. So again, remember that your goal should be to differentiate yourself from the crowd. So what research paper could I do that'll be unique, or is there something else I could do and stuff? I did research papers because I had the ability to and I had the time to. But just remember, it's not the be all end all, of course. And for those of you who might think that the grades that we said were pretty high and unreasonable and stuff, there's nothing like that. Just again, give it your best shot, and then apply to colleges that you think you could get. Apply to colleges that you think are a reach. Try sorting them out and creating a list for yourself, and then see where you get in. Ultimately, the place you get in will be best suited for you, because a student who clearly does not have the grades of the top tier schools probably would suffer in the top tier schools anyway if they ended up going there without having the capability to handle that scene academically. So remember that it's ultimately a point. The point is that you're supposed to thrive in the school you get into. If you have bad grades and you go to a school that is extremely academically demanding, for example, Chicago and stuff like that, you're probably going to suffer. So it's best that you actually give it your best shot and actually go to your best school for you. A school that offers extreme freedom and has a lot of other things going on might be the best for you if that's the kind of person you are.
Deepika, I think, yes, you're right. I think there was some confusion when Val said PSET is not basically conduct the PSET and make it mandatory in school. So yes, you can write the PSET. I think we are running short of time. If there are one or two more questions, we can probably take that and then we can wind up.
Isha, you have a question from Aparna Gupta regarding demonstrated interest, or the spike that I was referring to. You want to answer that?
I think this is referring to demonstrated interest with the specific college in terms of how much you interact with the college itself. So it really depends. Like, I had zero contact with CMU. I didn't even have an interview and I still got in. But with a couple of other colleges, with Case Western and with Brandeis specifically, I met them even before my applications went in. They'd come down to Bangalore in, I think, August or September, and I had like a pre-application interview, and I stayed in touch with my interviewers, and I wound up getting in and getting a scholarship. And I did the same thing with Tufts, and I was actually in touch with the Tufts person throughout the summer after I got waitlisted. And I eventually got off the waitlist. But it definitely helps, but it's not a guarantee that you're going to get in.
Regarding college counselors, for my specific school, our principal wanted to be our college counselor. So he was the primary counselor. So we weren't really allowed to have other college counselors. That being said, I took advice from a lot of people, including Rajdeep sir and basically anyone else who I could find, seniors who had gone to college and stuff. And that way, and even websites. One website that I would love to recommend is this website called collegevine.com, collegevine.com. It basically has a breakdown of essay questions and what colleges are looking for in those essay questions. It might help you a lot. It also has a breakdown on every college. And so I'm just going to put that in the description. There are also websites for rankings. So I would recommend either US News or Niche for college rankings if that's what you're looking at. But generally, college counselors will help you specifically in the sense they'll tell you, hey, this might be something unique you can do, or this is, and they can help you basically further your interest on a one-on-one basis. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to what we said about what college is looking for. As far as contact details go, I know that you guys might want them, so we're just gonna put ours in the description.
Yeah,
I'm giving my Instagram handle and my phone number, so hopefully that should be enough. If you guys have any questions, you can contact me personally.
Guys, do you want to? I'll share it personally. Whoever asked me directly, because this might go on the YouTube. You don't want your numbers and everything else to be on there, right? So
okay, sure.
No, Val might want that. He's in favor.
So guys, anyways, I think Akhil, you have asked this and you have my number any which way. So please feel free, go ahead, drop me a message and I'll connect you to the exact person, whoever you are interested with, depending on your major, right? Because I don't want it to be on the public. Isha, please don't share. Yeah, no problem. Anything else? Any other question, guys? I think Val has already shared 2 links, which are important. I think for the ranking, US News and Niche, and I think the college wine is what he's saying.
Again, remember, if colleges are very
but
close on the ranking system, try factoring in other things because
Correct.
there's no real difference between a number 5 and a number 7.
Yeah, don't get too worried about the rankings either. Like I opened like US News and like it's a like QS World Rankings, that thing, and like Times, and then the rankings are bizarrely different, and like it doesn't really matter. One of them places like IITs at like 164, which I don't think is true at all, and like and other places like other colleges, like a few other colleges in other places, slightly higher. So don't be worried about that too much. I mean, sure, like we hear the name sometimes and that might create like a sense of, you know, it being great, but in the end, like we said, it's if you let the process be organic, you would be happier as well. So try not to get too like worried about rankings, etc.
Thanks, guys. I think just on the closing note before we end, I think though I know these guys have been very humbled in saying that, hey, grades are this and SAT is this, any score is okay. I would reiterate it that if you are planning to apply to the top 20 college, if you are in 9th and 10th grade, you have time to improve your scores. Make sure your grades are as high as possible. Though all these 3 guys are saying that it's fine, but you have already heard from all 3 of them, the grades were exceptional, right? So if in case there are kids or students who are hearing this, please don't take this chat or the webinar in the wrong sense, saying, hey, even if we don't have a good grade, it's fine if you don't have it even until today. But the objective should be that from here on, please try and make sure that you have your grades as high as possible. You have your SATs, ACTs, subject SAT scores as high as possible, right? I think because in the top colleges, they assume that these things are given, right? They assume that you already have good academics and then they start looking at your other profile or extracurricular activities. So please make sure, as I said in somewhere in the middle of the webinar as well, it has to be the grades, which is the topmost priority, then the SATs, then the subject SATs, then the APs, right? And in parallel to this is your profile, right? If any of these is not good, then the profile will not really help, because as Aryan rightly said, you will not have the entry inside the gate. If you don't have the entry inside the gate, they might not look at your profile until unless it's an exceptional profile for some other different reasons.
Thing is, the colleges, they'll look at a certain range, and people on either side of the spectrum of the range they're looking for will obviously have to have more going for them here than these people here because of that disparity. But again, it's a gating factor. It took me a retest of the SAT to get the score I wanted. I started off with a 1500 and then went ahead to get the 1590 because that's what I wanted. So I retook it for that. So you can retake standardized tests, but make sure that like your class grades and stuff, obviously you get really one shot at it. So you should probably try just doing your best there. It took me work to get those grades in standardized tests, so they don't just come. But at the end of the day, if you're determined, you'll probably get to go where you'd want to go.
And if there's a specific test, exam, or whatever where you didn't do as well as you normally did for a valid reason, say you broke your leg, say someone fell sick, then they give you space to explain yourself in your application. Make sure your school counselor who's writing your recommendation letter mentions it, if they understand that such things happen.
About the recommendation letters, cultivate like a good reputation with those people who are giving you a recommendation letter, because that is viewed very heavily by colleges. I would say the priorities for colleges would at first, they would be like your SAT grade so that they can do the gating factor. Then it would be recommendation letters, and then it would be your extracurriculars and other stuff like that. So those are the kind of pillars you need to be looking at for all of this.
Great. Thanks everyone. Thanks all the participants for staying with us. I know we said it's going to be an hour, but I think we have stretched it to 1.5 hours. Thanks for staying there. And thanks a ton to all the three speakers for taking out time on a weekend and spending 1.5 hours, though I've taken permission only for an hour. Really, really appreciate it. If you guys have any further questions, I think most of you guys will have, ReWiser number, or else I will share the link of ReWiser website here instead of sharing anyone's contact details. I think on the website, you can find our contact details. You can reach out to us and let us know which which speaker would you like to connect, and you can connect to the particular person. And yes, we will be sharing the recording as well. Recording will be out on our social media handles by end of the day tomorrow. And we will also try and send out the mailers to each one of you with the YouTube link for the webinar, which has happened today, and also the last webinar. If in case, please feel free to join in next weekend again at the same time on Saturday. We'll be back again with different set of speakers who are again gone into different college. So if in case, though the questions would be by and large similar, but I think again, the idea is here to take a different perspective from different students and see what different people have done differently, right? So if in case you would wish to join, please come back again, same 12 p.m. Drop us a message and we will share the link again next time. Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Good luck,
Thanks for your
guys.
Thank
time.
you. Good luck to everyone.